Hey everybody, I'm John Reffett and welcome back to the shop. Today what I thought I'd talk to you about is a Tennessee handle. And we're going to be replacing this one. But what a Tennessee handle is, these two rings that you have here fit on the blank like this. And then you put your reel seat into these little grooves. Allows you to set the reel anywhere you want to on the handle. It's not the typical screw-in type, so you can put it back here or up here if you would prefer to have a little bit more of the rod handle going down your arm for a little bit of leverage. But so we have, this one's about 10 inches. I think this one, the new one's about 10 3/4. Have to do a little bit of thread and epoxy work here once we get finished. But comes with a butt cap. Just slide it on as once we get it glued on and everything. But what you probably won't believe is we've got to cut this thing in half. We'll cut it in half and then ream it the size to fit onto this rod blank, and then we'll slide one ring on one side, one ring on the other, and then glue everything back together. Possibly we could have to sand a little bit where the two pieces go together, but we'll try to cut it as smooth as possible. So, but you can replace the handle on your rod and not have to remove all the guides. You can just do it from the rear and slide it up. A smaller blank like this would be easier because there's not a lot of taper in it, but we will be reaming them out and add to it. One other thing, you don't have to really worry about, getting the handle on the kind of traditional screw-in type here in the reel seat, to match your guide. So this thing can just go on any way. There's no certain way that it has to be there. So we'll get the camera moved around and we'll remove this one. And okay, so we got everything laid out. Now how I'm gonna take this off, it's I guess there's several ways you could probably do it, but just will take a pair of pliers and just pinch off the cork. As you can see, I started here, and you can see when you reach the blank. So what you want to do is kind of just ever so slightly take a small chunk out, and you can kind of work your way around, and you'll start to see the blank, but do not gouge that blank. So you just take little bits at a time, and it comes off really easy. And then as you get closer to it, you can kind of use your hands a little bit and just ever so slightly get that cork off of there. And you can kind of see, I think this is a Browning rod. Yeah, but you can see some places there was no glue, so it'll come off a little bit easier. It kind of gives you an idea on how these rod manufacturers, what kind of quality they put into them. Some do real good and some don't, but we'll just keep pinching around here. Let's be careful not to get into the blank. And just work our way right on up. As you can see, there was no glue. And I'll go ahead and peel the rest of this off and we'll come right back. Okay, so we're down to our last little few pieces here. This doesn't take long at all. It just took me a few minutes here. And we'll just pinch off our last few pieces. Some of it came off really easy where there wasn't very much epoxy on it at all. Just be real careful not to get into your blank. So what that leaves you now is here at the winding check. Most of these are rubber, so you can most likely take your knife, ever so slightly cut into it. Then once you get a grip on it, you probably peel it right off, I'd say. Yeah, she'll come right off of there. There it is. And then just like I've shown before, you can take a little bit of epoxy off if there would be any thread or anything right in your way. If you just get under it and then start to peel. You can do your guides the same way. A couple other videos I think I showed how easy it was to remove a guide. Just keep peeling it right on down. Alright, we're right to the end of the thread where they did a little trim wrap. Just do the same thing. Just kind of get right up under it ever so easy. She'll peel right off. So now on the other end, what I did here, you can see I did a little bit of work already here. I just took the X-Acto knife and kind of just scraped the big pieces of that cork off of there. Being careful not to get into your blank. You don't have to get all the glue off of there, but you definitely want the big chunks of cork or whatever handle it might be. Get most of that off of there. And then take a piece of sandpaper, the fun part, and and then just sand on it until you get it all off of there and get everything pretty smooth. Any big chunks of epoxy, you might want to go ahead and you can use a heat gun and heat it up just a little bit, and it'll scrape right off. But don't put too much heat on there because you could damage the blank. Probably have to do that here, but you can just do that all the way down till you get to wherever you need to stop here, and then you'll be ready to put on your new blank. But you can see right here a little bit, it looks like epoxy, but I believe that's a coating that they've put all the way on this rod. So, you know, you can just ever so slightly square it off, and as you can see, it will be covered. So as long as you don't go any further than your existing handle, you'll be good right here. Then you can wrap over it with your thread. So we'll get this all cleaned up, and then we'll cut this bad boy in half. Try to do it a nice square cut, ream it out, and install it on the rod. So I'll clean this up and be right back. Okay, so I've got everything all cleaned up here. As you can see, Annie had some spots where there was some quite a bit of epoxy, but sands down real easy. You can use a little bit of heat if you've got some bigger globs of the glue, the epoxy there, and it'll scrape right off. Just like I say, be careful and not gouge that blank. So our next step will be to cut our handle. Really don't like doing this, but I went in and put the butt cap on and measured to the middle of it, which is about 5 5/8 on this one. Got a little mark here, so try to be as straight as possible here. So we'll just put our razor blade right on our mark. Just kind of rock back and forth while you're putting a little pressure on to try to get a good straight cut and not break the cork, because the cork is brittle. So just keep cutting her through. Just roll our way around here. possible. But if it does come out just a little bit out of whack, you'll be able to sand it down smooth. Just about through it there. There we go. Got off just a little bit there, but I think we'll be able to fix that. Yeah, go right back together. It'll probably be almost impossible to cut it perfectly straight. So now we got to ream it out to where this will just slide right up over the end of it. And then you can slide your rings on. As you can see now, here is the cutout where your real foot will be. So don't forget to put those. They'll fit pretty snug. Go ahead and set those on right so we don't forget them. There. So once we go back together, real feet slide in here, slide those up on top of them. There you go. So we'll I'll go ahead and get some epoxy mixed up here. Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Probably need to ream it out a little bit. I think I've shown this before of these reamers. You can get these from Mud Hole. These, I think they're called the Extreme Reamers, but they do fit into your drill, which makes it really easy. But the problem with that is you can take too much. So what you want to do is just ream a little bit, fit it, ream a little bit, fit it. And this makes it a little bit easier on the taper too, because this end may not need to be reamed out quite as much as the butt end of it. So we'll take us a couple of swipes with this and see how it fits. So just like so, like I say, right in the drill. We'll start in here. This does get a little sloppy, so I'm going to do it over the trash can here, so not to get it in everything. So you kind of just want to run it through, just like so. Take a little bit and check it. See where we are. Oh yeah, we got a ways to go yet. So I'll do a couple more reams on this, get this section fitted, and same thing here, and get it fitted right, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so we've got it reamed out. Our first piece is here. You just kind of want to slide it on, kind of twist a little bit as you go, but be careful when you do it, because this cork is flexible and you could snap that off, so be kind of careful and not push on the rear of it. And then just run it up there till you see the blank on the rear of it. You don't, and when you put the epoxy on, or the glue, it's going to act like a grease, so it's going to slide on a lot easier than that. And then you can see the ends poking out, so we'll run it back just a little bit where that's about even. And you can slide our pieces around here. As you can see, I got a little bit off, but we'll match those up. Yeah, there you go. Keep that. We can keep that piece towards the bottom, and then we'll be ready to glue. So there's step 1 and 2 to getting it together. So we'll mix up some epoxy, and like I say, we'll put a little bit extra in here. Kind of hide that gap a little, get everything lined up just like it needs to be, and then we can sand that off a little bit right there. And also on these cork handles, when you get everything finished, use some cork sealer. You can get this stuff at Mud Hole, and it just brushes on kind of just like a paint. You just put it lightly on, it'll soak down into it, and then keep it as you saw it in the beginning. The blank was all, you know, dirty and cruddy looking. And that'll keep it, also waterproof it, and also, you know, keep your hands from turning it an off color. So, all right, the next step, we'll mix up some epoxy and we'll glue this thing on. Okay, so got my Pro Paste mix up. So here's what it is. Remember, we did this from the last one. Equal parts of each. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I just use like a plastic knife, popsicle stick, something like that, and get equal parts of each one of these, the hardener and the resin, and then mix it for at least a minute, and it'll turn out something like this. After I just got all over my hand. So what we want to do is go ahead and spread some on our blank. We'll get the rear piece on first, and then we'll slide the top piece back down. So get a good amount all over it here. It doesn't have to be really thick, because most of it's going to come off anyway when you put the handle on. It's going to all pile up towards the end of it. So just make sure you get it coated really good all over. Make sure we got enough. Yeah. So I'll take a little bit of that excess off. Get a little bit of it up in the end. Okay. And I wrapped a little bit of tape around the end of this, because as you shove it in, it's all going to ball up here, and then it's easy to clean off here. So we'll just start it on. As you can see how easy it really goes once you get that glue on there. And twist as you go, so it gets all up into all the crevices in the cork. And we'll take it all the way up to the blank. Comes out this rear end, about right there. You don't want it to stick out beyond the end, because we got the cap to put on. So there's that half. So we'll take the stick here and we'll get the excess off. Slide that little bit off, and we'll just put it further down the blank. But we want a good bit here between the two pieces, because that's where it will glue together, and then we'll have to sand off the excess. So we'll add some more. So about right here is about as far as we want to go. That's about where our handle's going to end on the blank. So we'll coat that. Get a little bit of excess. Because as you do these handles, you'll see you really don't need a giant amount of this stuff. Like I say, most of it will end up coming out. So same deal here. Twist as you go. And if you would happen to ream it out too much, you can make an arbor out of masking tape, which would be just wrap the blank to fill in the different gap, let it to where it'll just slide over pretty easy, and that'll work too. I've been there and done that a time or two. So we kind of twist it together here. Get rid of some excess. This is where I was a little bit crooked on my cut. I've got some marks here. So we'll probably want to remove that tape. And we'll line up our marks. Kind of let that set a second here, but as you can see on the front, it covered everything up that we took off. So we'll take a little bit around here, for our butt cap. And that'll just about do it. So I'll take some extra down inside of it, coat it real good. A little bit out here around the edges. And then whatever squeezes out, we can wipe off with alcohol and clean it right up. And also on the cork itself, go ahead and add a little bit to that. Doesn't take a whole lot, as long as you get a good coating all the way around. A little bit more to the end here. And we'll slide this cap on. Kind of twist as we go. There we go. Now, take a little alcohol, we'll wipe off the excess. Remember, when you do this, use 91% isopropyl alcohol. Works well with the epoxy on the guides too. And just wipe her off. Pretty simple. This is probably one of the easiest ones I've done, because you really don't have to line anything up. And this does dry clear, so you're not going to see it. So let's take a little excess off here. See what we got. See how she's lining up. As you can see where the glue has filled in the gap. See the mark there. Okay, so now, and once that dries, we'll sand her off and then seal the cork. And then on the front, you have your winding check. You glue it as well. Just takes get a toothpick. Just takes a small amount on that, and that covers the gap between the cork, because it does have a slight gap where you had to make it a little bit bigger so we could slide it all the way up. So. This will cover everything. So just get a little bit on a toothpick or something small. And then you can just coat that. And it's good, not a bad idea if you do have a gap, go ahead and pack some glue into that gap. It will seal it. You know, you don't want any water or anything to get into it down the road, because it could cause a failure. So we'll just pack a little bit into that gap. Like that. And slide our winding check down. Toothpick here. Because that stuff will squirt. I'm just trying to move it in nice and get it all good and tight there. And that's kind of, you can see it there, kind of about it. Just twist it, look around, make sure it's on there good and straight. Sometimes they'll get a little messed up on you. But and then take a little alcohol, wipe off your excess, and that is about it. We're gonna let it sit. I'd let it sit overnight. Let everything to cure real good before you sand here or do any wrapping or anything it might need on this end. And then, you know, of course, you can put your reel on, move it wherever you like to. So if you like that kind of handle, that's just about how easy it is. And just make sure your cut may be a little bit better than mine, but that's about it. So I thought